Hey, everybody, welcome back to Pro AV Today. I'm your host, Ben Thomas. One of the things that I love most about our industry over the last 5 or so years is that we've done a fantastic job asking questions and opening things up like NDI and WebRTC and Dante and creating these protocols that folks can build on top of. So it's not exclusively this closed ecosystem anymore. You've got folks that are developing on top of protocols that are created and really creating some fantastic stuff, not only on the hardware manufacturer side, but from the software side as well. One of the companies that jumps out to me that is doing that incredibly well over the last few years is Q-SYS. So I said, look, I want to have you guys on to ask some questions, digging a little bit deeper. With that said, joining me today is Tammy Fuqua and Adrien Avellan from Q-SYS. Thank you both so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Ben.
Well, Tammy, we'll start with you. Obviously, Q-SYS is doing incredible things from the developer side of things, but, I want to start on a high level, right? A lot of times you'll hear folks want to have closed ecosystems and things like that, but what are some of the benefits to having a more open ecosystem that folks can develop on top of, especially when it comes to AV applications?
Yeah, sure. So as the developer partner manager at Q-SYS, that's one of my job requirements is to go out and seek out developers that can help us with that ecosystem. So I have a counterpart that goes out and talks to manufacturers. She brings them into a program specifically for manufacturers. And then what happens is we decide, is that going to be done in-house by our team, or am I going to farm it out to one of my third-party developers? The third-party developers in my program are all vetted to make sure that they are able to do quality work, and they do that by training and testing to be in my program. So that's how we kind of get things started, is just being able to find opportunities for these developers to work with our open platform.
Well, and I want to follow up on that quickly. Are these folks who typically live in the Pro AV world, or are they folks that maybe exist outside of traditional AV applications but have incredible skills, whether that's UI, UX, being able to connect things to different APIs? Are they folks who traditionally live in the AV world?
I would say most of them are in the AV world. Yes. They're the developers that I have in the program. Some of them are actually work on distributing and integrating products. And then they have this other side part where they're actually developing some of the plugins that we're using in our ecosystem. Some of them, that's their only job, is to just write code and develop plugins, drivers, modules, depending on which control platform they're developing for.
Well, and Adrien, I want to follow up and ask you as well, right? It's obvious some of the benefits maybe that a developer might be able to provide to a platform, but what does the inverse look like, right? Why would a developer jump on something like this? Is it scalable? Does it give them new opportunities to execute on their craft? What are some of the reasons and value propositions for them on their side?
Well, it touches to your first question, what is the advantage to have an open API for these developers? And really the key word here is self-enablement. So using protocols and languages that developers are already familiar with, not having to learn new proprietary tools, all that, that's already a proposition value on its own, because you can also find developers on the market who come from a more software engineering centric world and bring them into the AV world. And that's why we see a lot of the drivers of the big developer house are people from AV, but who started recruiting people who are more IT centric, software and engineering centric, people who are not necessarily have lived 10 years in AV, often, young kids who have strong programming skills that we can now enable to work in AV through tools that are, familiar to them.
Well, I want to stick on that for a second, right? I really enjoyed that you brought that up, right? One of the primary goals of our industry collectively right now is finding ways to recruit and retain talent. One of the ways that we could do that is actually through these development programs. And you you talked about it as a point of entry into the industry. Are these skill sets typically something that you'll see from folks who are newer to the industry? Is it something that most people who are aging in for the first time, are these skill sets that most of them have?
It's the majority do come from the AV industry and learn programming as a result of it. You start seeing a slow shift of people who come from the other world and now attach themselves to AV industry and choose an industry. Come out straight off university or other industries where the skills are similar now, and we see a lot more transferability, I think that's a word, for those skills, So the shift is happening. It's still a majority of folks who come from the AV world who have a passion for this industry, who learn how to program. But now we do see a stronger base of folks who came from a software engineering background.
And Tammy, one of the things too that sticks out in my mind is there's one company that stands out that really does this well in B2B, and in my opinion, that company is Salesforce, who have built a platform and allowed developers to actually build on top of it, and in some cases create entire careers based off of that. But one of the things that they do very well is it's very much a two-way communication. The developers and the platform providers are always collaborating. They're always having discussions. How can we leverage that collaboration more on the AV side? Is it something that we can be more intentional about? Is it something that there's already a lot of great work happening on? How's that working right now for you?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, my program is still pretty much in its infancy. We haven't even been together for a year in this program. But I think that we're allowing opportunities for these developers to dive deeper into our own ecosystem. And in turn, it allows them to get deeper into some of these other platforms too. I mean, you mentioned just a minute ago about bringing in younger talent. I mean, that's something that, being part of the AVIX Women's Council, we're always trying to figure out ways to get younger talent into the AV business. And I think that that's one way of doing that is by, introducing these platforms and development opportunities at an earlier age, and so that they can see that there's a pathway into development. So yeah, I think we're just another company that's offering some more of these skill sets through our training and other ways to introduce it to the market.
And Ben, if I can add something to that, so we do look at Salesforce a lot in terms of how they're able to enable their developers. We'll tell you we do it this much that we launched 2 years ago a developer community portal that is a great way to mimic what Salesforce did with Trailhead and all that. So because I had to go through the whole path of Trailhead myself to build this platform myself, we found great ways to reuse what they've done already, aka the tools, the platforms. So if you go on our developer community, it's not just a forum. We have the same ID exchange concept that they have for Salesforce, where the community can start having more of a democratic process, turn into more of a user VOC feedback tool that Salesforce uses in that way, to really let the user decide of what the platform can become, and also, how to better the integration and really listen to a first-based basis to the power users of our platform. And so we've adopted a lot of those tools that Salesforce have, and so we follow very closely the efforts they do on their end. And you mentioned, app stores and things like that. So we look at offering the same level of enablement, for developers to be able to self-enable themselves and start doing self-publishing of solutions they can create with our open environment. So yeah, we follow the good examples that those big companies are already, creating a good basis for.
I'm glad you brought that up, Adrien. And one of the benefits, and I'm gonna kick this back to Tammy as well. Outside of even just recruiting and ideating and collaborating, one of the great things about a program like this is that it allows experts in different communities to basically come to you, right? One of our biggest challenges in AV right now is, okay, we are no longer kind of nice to have, we have to have in so many different places, whether that's higher ed, whether that's conferencing collaboration, whether that's remote work, whether that's hospitality, healthcare. We can go on forever with all the places that we could be. And it's been difficult for us as an industry to kind of branch out and send verticalized teams. But the cool thing about a program like this is it almost does the inverse, right? It allows experts from different places to kind of come to you. Is that something that you've seen? And is that something that you anticipate being able to leverage as Q-SYS grows into different verticals?
I am approached quite often about the program and how some of these developers can be more involved in it. And that certainly has been the case as Q-SYS has started to grow over this, last couple of years. We're a platform that is definitely being sought out by these developers to learn more about and to develop for.
And Adrien, I want to ask a variation of that question as well. We talked before the show today about a little bit of our shared background in the music world. You know, when you look at QSC, formerly QSC, very pro audio heavy, right? So naturally, kind of with that comes some expertise in audio and routing and signal flow and things like that. How can almost the exact opposite of the question? How can you help bring some of that expertise maybe to some of the developers who might not have that expertise in signal flow or best practices and routing, things like that? Is that two-way communication? How are you able to achieve that?
So, you know, I'm going to piggyback to what you said earlier. You know, is how do you create this base of external developers to enable them in the first place? Just to go back in history, you know, Q-SYS made this very important move to start opening their third-party integration APIs for people to be able to start tinkering with it. The problem with all that, you know, is that you have to follow up with the documentation and you need to maintain this open API. You know? And at first we were dabbling in seeing, you know, who we're going to start tinkering with this. And years went by and, you know, the smart ones have reversed engineered, you know, the way it's done, even before we started coming up with official programs on how to do it. So we saw a strong base of people who were able organically to use the tools we had put at their disposition to already start building solutions and connections with the world. And so all that to say that at the end, if you look after all these years, you know, the community of external developers is now almost the best expert at answering themselves and at self-enabling themselves. So creating places where they can congregate, share ideas, you know, share concepts, lines of code, snippets, you know, anything that has an agnostic, brand agnostic, but educational purpose for a whole community has been so far the best way for us to transmit, to enable these people to find the education they need. Because keeping up with software features nowadays, you know, with videos, with documentation, all that is becoming a challenge. And keeping your base of external developers who are pouring even more passion into your own open API than you could have time to do it yourself is super empowering, you know. And we see the fruits to Tammy's program, where the aspirations is now to be able to do some real commercial activity and, you know, generate revenue out of this type of development now, and start dreaming of a career where I'm not just a programmer, I'm not just a script maker for an integrator, but there is a full-time job for me if I want to start making third-party integrations, you know, working with a specific API and all that. So that's I think the value we're trying to bring is let's bring the tool, let's make sure everybody is enabled to be able to converse and keep the openness of the conversation, you know. And so that's how we decided to do it, and so far it's working. We obviously have a vision for the future where we'll congregate and, you know, start strengthening, you know, the audience base. And, you know, because if we put ourselves in a few years from now, we estimate that now thousands of people will know how to use our tools and our APIs. So what does that mean for the market? These people become very, very marketable, and it's going to be our job to make sure these people are visible in the industry, which has not always been in the past.
Well, I love, Adrien, that you brought up kind of some of those challenges, right? It can be easy for us as a community to say, hey, these folks are coming in, they're the experts, they need to know how to code for this platform or this platform, you know. But Tammy, I want to ask, as somebody who is involved in a lot of the day-to-day side of kind of the community aspect of it, what are some of the common challenges that you find with folks kind of not even necessarily coming into the industry first time, but maybe developing specifically for a platform like Q-SYS?
Oh gosh. I think, you know, being able to keep up with the training aspect of being, like, you know, Adrien has mentioned, like, you know, sometimes they have to like find ways to learn more about our platform. We always need to be keeping up to date with that training, so that as our product evolves, then the training should also evolve for these developers that are wanting to develop for our platform. And I just think, you know, there's plenty of opportunity for developers to find work. It's just being able to find the right projects for them to be able to continue that development work.
Well, I'm glad we kind of, you know, have been able to have some conversations today about not only some of the benefits and challenges of a program like this, but the question typically that gets asked with a program like this, and everybody wants to pull out their crystal ball. And Adrien, I'll give you the question first, is, okay, how do we scale this? What does this look like in 5, 10, 15 years? Adrien, if you had, a magic wand, it could time travel. I don't know. I don't think you use a magic wand to time travel technically, but if for some reason that was the way that you time traveled and you could look ahead 15 years, what would you say a program like this is going to look like then?
Well, first I want to say that I think if I had a magic wand, I would try the time travel. But yeah, I think the future is bright because we know what it's supposed to look like. If you look at more software-centric companies who've just focused on how to enable developer communities, external developers, and also developer partners on how to create an exponential amount of solutions, over time, more than what the manufacturer themselves could make. That's the goal. And how do you get there? We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We put out an open API. The goal is to keep the documentation very accurate, to attach a lot of training, a lot of tutorials, and to do it in a way that this crowd can really ingest it, in a manner that matters to them. Because in the AV industry, people are learning all of that on the job. They are facing challenges, and then they are trying to find topic-based solutions as to how to face their challenge. And basically they have to learn how to program, which is not something that, it's not a ritual of passage, in the AV industry. It's something that you become. It's like, oh, I'm going to be the guy making control scripting now. And now you slowly become a programmer and a software engineer, and this world opens to you. So I think empowering AV programmers to become more software engineers is going to be the way in the future, to also give them more value, because I think those folks are undervalued in the industry. They're often an afterthought. Whereas if you look at in other industries, we absolutely cater to those engineers, So I think that's where the future lies for the AV industry.
And Tammy, we'll give you the last and final word here. Same question to you. If you had the, I guess, crystal ball, time travel machine, I don't know, maybe a magic wand, like I said. If you could look into the future in 10, 15 years, where would you like to see a program like this?
Yeah, I mean, who knows where technology will be in 15 years? I mean, we've seen so much growth in the last 15 years. So to see like where it's going to go to next, I mean, that's how I try to think about what the next iteration of this program is going to look like. What other opportunities can we offer our developers to do other types of projects for us to continue growing our ecosystem? I think, we've did an acquisition of Seer Vision that shows like opportunities for us to try to find other ways of being able to bring in new development work for these developers and get them excited about something that's new and upcoming within our company. So yeah, I think just trying to find the new ways of continuing the growth of developers. That's what we'll continue to offer here at Q-SYS. But yeah, I think it'll be exciting to see what this next 15 years will look like as far as technology and development.
Well, Tammy and Adrien, I'm going to put an earmark on this episode. You mentioned that the program is less than a year old, which is exciting. There's constant growth. I'm sure constant change, always new things happening in the pipeline. So I'm going to put a pin in this one, and we'll come back and circle back maybe even next year to talk a little bit about how the program has evolved. But it's something transparently that I am incredibly passionate about. I love to be able to create new pathways for people into our industry, whether that's through the software development side, whether that's through the manufacturing, engineer, integrator, installer side. So many different ways for folks to be able to get involved in the industry. And I'm grateful that you guys are offering another way and another pathway in. So Tammy and Adrien, we appreciate you coming on the show today.
Great. Thanks so much, Ben.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe and check us out again on Pro AV Today.